What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. I am your host, James Murphy, and welcome to episode number 18, and welcome to Friday's edition. Hopefully you are all having a wonderful week so far. Hopefully you're having a wonderful start to your weekend if you're already at that point, and we have a lot of stuff to dive into. Without further ado, let's just dive right into the quick hits. We have breaking news out of San Diego regarding one of the faces of baseball, or if not one of the soon-to-be faces of baseball, in Fernando Tatis Jr., where him and the San Diego Padres agreed to a 14-year, $340 million contract extension. That is nuts. He is 22 years old, and he has been an absolute star ever since he came into the league in 2019. He knows how to play. I'm saying he's got swagger, he's got spice, he's got skill, he's got everything you want in a franchise player. Let me tell you that. His contract is 14 years for $340 million. To put that into perspective, that is the third largest contract in MLB history. Yes, in MLB history. I remember the days when Alex Rodriguez's mega deal was like 10 years for $250 million. Like, I remember those days where that was the largest contract. Well, those days are long gone, and Tatis Jr. has officially made the bag. He is tumbling the bag, right? So the two other contracts in front of him, you guessed it, Mike Trout at $426.5 million and Mookie Betts for $365 million, which he did sign with the Dodgers last year. Wow. To be in that kind of company at your age with the little experience that you have, but this is a huge investment for the Padres. This is a huge win for Tatis Jr., and it is well-deserved. If you break it down, that is roughly a little over $24 million a year, 24 and some change, however you want to break it down. It could be front, it could be backloaded, it could be flat, who knows. The Padres have actually, backloaded a contract before with Eric Hosmer. I'm sorry, they front-loaded a contract before with Eric Hosmer when they signed him a couple years ago. But I believe a contract like this probably should be just a flat contract, if you're asking me, because of the size of it and the length of it. This contract for Tatis Jr. solidifies himself as either, like I mentioned at the top of the segment, a face of baseball or a soon-to-be face of baseball, because not just because of the dollar signs that he's making, but I've been on this train for a long time now because of what he brings to the table, and I think his contract is an epitome of what he brings to the table. He brings excellent defense here at shortstop. He brings someone who can hit the ball for contact and for power. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's got that swagger, that feel-good feeling. He's got that energy that you want out of a team leader, and he's soon going to be a team leader. Don't let his age get you wrong or fool you, because he will be a team leader for that Padres team with Manny Machado and Eric Hosmer over on first base and third base. So I do have to kind of bring it into a comparison with another star player in Major League Baseball who was young and who is still young and locked up their long-term extension, and that's Ronald Acuna Jr. A couple years ago when he broke into the league, him and Ozzie Albies is the quote-unquote baby Braves. Acuna Jr., went off, had a wonderful little half-rookie season or whatever it was, and he then signed a contract extension with the Atlanta Braves. And if we're looking at his contract in comparison to Tatis Jr.'s contract, there is no comparison on who got the better deal, obviously being Tatis Jr., or if you want to look at it on the other side of the coin, that is the Braves, because they signed Acuna to an 8-year, $100 million contract. 8 years, $100 million contract, yes. That's nuts. And that is a steal. That's a bargain, because I actually just finished recording a YouTube exclusive video for my top 25 players in all of MLB going into the 2021 NFL. Oh my goodness, the MLB season. And a little spoiler, but Acuna Jr. is very high on that list. I'm not going to tell you where because I don't want to spoil it. I want you to go watch it. But he's very high on that list. And for someone as high on that list as he is, you would think he'd be kind of making a lot more money. However, when he signed that contract, he wasn't the player he is now. And maybe no one really expected him to, maybe himself. But still, to break it down, he's making $5 million in 2021, and then it's going to jump to 15 in 2022, and then it's going to be 17 throughout the rest of his contract until the end of 2028. So if I'm the Braves, I'm looking at it like I jumped on this young stud way early in his career, gave him a boatload of money, and now he's locked into a team-friendly contract for the type of player that he is, and that is a similar approach that the Padres took, trying to lock in a star player early in their career. However, the dollar sign wasn't a quote-unquote bargain for the Padres, to say the least. However, they do have the money to spend. They do have the room on their payroll to spend it, and this just shows us how competitive that they're going to be for years to come, and how very serious they are in being contenders in the playoffs for World Series for not only this year, but for years to come as well. So I think this is a huge win for both sides, whether it's the Padres or Tatis Jr. Obviously, a bigger win for Tatis Jr. because he's making a boatload of cash. But for the Padres, locking up their cornerstone franchise player for the next 14 years until he's 36 years old. Wow. 36 years old after a 14-year contract. That's nuts to say. But yes, those... man, imagine making $340 million in 14 years. I wish, man. I wish. But okay, let's move over to the next topic, and that is going to be the news that broke out of Philadelphia with them. The Philadelphia Eagles sending Carson Wentz to the Indianapolis Colts for 2 draft picks. Yes, another quarterback shoe has dropped in the NFL, where Carson Wentz has been traded to the Indianapolis Colts. So just a couple weeks ago, we saw that Jared Goff got traded from the Rams to the Lions, and Matthew Stafford from the Lions to the Rams. But this one is just strictly quarterback for draft picks, and this is the first deal of this kind we've seen this offseason so far, and we could potentially anticipate others along the way. So let me just break down the Carson Wentz deal for you really quickly. Obviously, the Colts are acquiring Carson Wentz. However, the Colts are giving the Eagles 2 draft picks. One, 2021 third-round pick, and then the second is a conditional 2022 second-round pick that could turn into a first-rounder. Now, the 2021 third-round pick is locked and loaded as the third-round pick, which I believe is 85th overall for the Colts, I believe. So obviously that's going to Philadelphia. However, that 2022 conditional pick could turn into a first-rounder, like I said, if Carson Wentz plays 75% of his snaps, or 75% of the Colts' offensive snaps, or Carson Wentz plays 70% of the Colts' offensive snaps, and they make the playoffs. So there's a little two-way thing right there. 75% if he just, 75% of the snaps, period. No playoffs, nothing. Or he can only play 70% and they just have to make the playoffs. And if one of those two things happen, then the Indianapolis Colts will be sending over their 2022 first-round pick instead of their 2022 second-round pick. A lot of twos in there, I know. It's just, woo. But if Carson Wentz can go back into his MVP-esque form that we saw in 2017, then this is going to be a deal, a steal, a bargain for the Colts, because they obviously need a quarterback. They need a cornerstone franchise quarterback with Phillip Rivers now retired. And I think Carson Wentz has the potential to be that cornerstone guy for the Colts, because the Colts are a very good team. They have a lot of young, great pieces, whether it's on offense or on defense. With Phillip Rivers now retired, even if he was still there, they're still in need of a quarterback because Phillip Rivers wasn't going to take them over the hump. But Carson Wentz potentially can. Now, let's look at it from the Eagles' perspective here. With trading Carson Wentz, the Philadelphia Eagles will be saving $853,000 in cap space for the 2021 offseason. That's not good. That's not good. Because in addition to saving a little bit of money, they're going to be taking on a dead cap hit of $33.8 million. Yeah, that's a lot of money to just pay someone for not playing for you. Let me rephrase that again in case you didn't understand that. So if you sign a player to a contract, you give them a bonus or guaranteed money. And that bonus or guaranteed money goes on as a penalty if you trade them, release them, cut them, whatever. Now, just 20 months ago, the Eagles just signed Carson Wentz to a contract extension, and now he's gone. Now, I say this so I don't know how to phrase it because it is a poor financial decision from the Eagles to trade him, and that is why I did not think that the Eagles would trade Carson Wentz. Because yes, you save $853,000 in cap space, but who's that going to get you? One player, like a special teamer maybe, or like a back end depth player? You're not going to get anybody. You're not. And now, trading Carson Wentz, you are also losing $33.8 million for someone that's not even going to be on your team next year. So this is the full hammer on the reset button for the Philadelphia Eagles. Regardless if you like them or not, this is a dumb move, and you have to admit that this is a dumb move from them. Yes, they are looking towards the future. However, they're investing so much in Jalen Hurts. Now, I'm a big Alabama fan, but I didn't like him at Alabama because he wasn't the guy. He really wasn't. He was another version of Lamar Jackson. Yes, Jalen Hurts could throw the ball a little bit, but look who he was throwing to. And you can make that same argument about Tua today. Like, Tua was an excellent quarterback. He was more of a passer, but look who he was passing the ball to. And now he's in Miami, and he's kind of struggling to throw the ball to receivers. Granted, the Dolphins did have some injuries, but there's still no excuse. If you're a good quarterback, you should be able to throw it to almost anybody, right? To an extent, of course. But however, we saw the little bit of Jalen Hurts that we saw in this past season for the few weeks towards the end of the season that we saw him. And it was a lot of the same stuff that we saw at Oklahoma. Was a lot of play action, a lot of read option, a lot of RPOs where he would either hand it off or keep it. And that's basically Lamar Jackson, right? That's basically the Ravens offensive playbook right there, is to do the read options, the RPOs, the play actions with the quarterback, Lamar Jackson. And yes, that's nice. And yes, that works from time to time. But long term, that's not going to work. And at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts, his play style, lost his job to Tua. Then he goes on to Oklahoma, has a wonderful season there, an incredible season there, kind of rejuvenating his draft stock, becoming a second-round pick. But that's not the type of team that the Eagles are. They have some decent weapons on the outside. They have a lot of a good young offensive core. And obviously, yes, they still need a top-tier wide receiver, but from the looks of it, there's no need to get one if you're just going to go with the Ravens playbook with Jalen Hurts, which we saw a lot of, towards the end of last season. So it's just a very questionable move financially because it puts you in such a bind. Like I said, it puts you in a $33.8 million dead cap hit. And it's so hard to A, rebuild, and B, just build a competitive team unless they're planning for 2022, which it seems like they could potentially be doing that because I don't know how much they're going to be able to do with a dead cap hit of almost $34 million. Now, when the Rams traded Jared Goff, who the Rams also signed to a contract extension not too long ago, the Rams incurred a dead cap hit of $22.2 million, which was the NFL record for dead cap hit, but until this trade with Carson Wentz, which is now $33.8 million, is the record for a dead cap hit. I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, I understand the Eagles wanting to, quote unquote, kind of rebuild, look ahead, and, try to get some assets back for a player that may not even want to be there. And I get that. Trust me, I do. And if moving Wentz will help you put you in a better position long term, do it. I'm all for it. But it's going to be really hard to kind of crawl yourself out of a $34 million cap hit. That's why I was against trading him to begin with, because I think Jalen Hurts was just a little bit of lightning in a bottle, and that's it. I don't really see him as a long-term, success option for the Eagles or just in general. And I hate saying that because he's an Alabama kid, but I'm just telling you what I see from the football field and what I've seen with my eyes watching the game. But that's just me. I want to hear your thoughts about it because this is definitely an interesting topic for discussion, an interesting topic for debate, whether it's the Fernando Tatis Jr. contract extension or the Carson Wentz trade from Philly to Indy. I definitely want to hear thoughts about it. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, wherever you can find me, obviously, because that's where I'm at and that's where you're listening on, reach out to me on Twitter and on Instagram at Murphs_BostonST. Shoot me a tweet, shoot me a DM, whatever. Email me, Facebook me, I don't care. I want to hear your thoughts about, these two little quick hits that we had, because they're so interesting to talk about. Is it too early to sign Tatis Jr. to that big contract? Is Carson Wentz trade a good move for the Colts? Is it a good move for the Eagles? Should the Eagles be investing this much in Jalen Hurts? I want to hear your thoughts. You've heard my thoughts. So like I said, reach out to me at Murphs_BostonST. And if you're listening on YouTube, just comment down below. Tell me what your thoughts are, and let's get a conversation going on all platforms, because this podcast is all about discussion, all about generating conversation. If we have friendly arguments, so be it. But that's kind of what sports is about, right? So let's move on to our next actual topic. And we're going to dive into a little news that came out of Boston for the Red Sox. And that is the good news of Chris Sale is on track after his Tommy John surgery. Now, for those that don't know, Tommy John surgery is the surgery of a ligament in your elbow to kind of, fix the deterioration of the ligament after throwing, so much baseball, curveballs and whatnot. So pitchers or just players in general who throw too much or throw, the wrong way or throw too much, too many curveballs, the ligament in the elbow will start to deteriorate and start to weaken to the point of a lot of pain and a lot of agony. So they'll require surgery, and that surgery usually takes between 8 to 12 months to recover from. Now, Chris Sale got Tommy John surgery last March, so 11 months ago. So he should be on track to come back and pitch for this coming season. However, I do have to note one thing that we've seen in times past, that pitchers that come back from Tommy John surgery kind of struggle their first year back, because trying to get into the flow of things, trying to feel it out, get their rhythm back, because it's been, roughly a year since they've last been on the diamond. Same thing with NFL players or other players who tear their ACL. It takes a long time to get back into it. Like we saw Julian Edelman, he tore his ACL. It took him a long time to really get back into the Julian Edelman that we know. Jordy Nelson of the Packers took him a while to become the Jordy Nelson that we knew and love. I don't know why I thought of Jordy Nelson there for that. I don't know why. I mean, there's other names, but whatever. I'm getting off track. Chris Sale coming back in 2021 to pitch after Tommy John surgery. We do need him so much. That pitching staff, that pitching rotation needs him so much. That's just a fact, not opinion. The Red Sox rotation blows. It blows so bad, and Chris Sale coming back is a huge help. However, we do have to have relatively low expectations for the fact that he hasn't pitched in over a year. Now, he got the surgery done in March. There was a little bit of spring training before COVID-19 shut down the 2020 MLB season. But I don't remember if he pitched anything in spring training. And if he did, it was very little, because I don't think he did. So then the last time he pitched before that was at the end of the 2019 season. So it's been almost a year and a half since he's actually pitched and thrown on the mound. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know about anyone out there listening, but could you go 18 months or so without picking up a baseball and throwing competitively to, these big major league hitters and have success? Me personally, no. And I would think the same for you as well, unless you're a professional pitcher. But, in Chris Sale's case, he is a professional pitcher, but it's been so long since he's been on the mound. There's a lot of routine, a lot of repetition, the mindset, the mentality, the psyche behind it. And that's going to take some time to get back into, because with anything you do, I mean, say you go away for a week on vacation, you come back that Monday morning, it just takes you like a few minutes or, an hour or so to kind of get back into the groove, back into the swing of things. It's the same thing in sports too. And Chris Sale is going to fall victim to that, just like everyone else does. But it is going to be good to have him back. But we do have to have low expectations for him, because usually for major injuries like this, Tommy John, the ACL, which is in your knee, it takes athletes like a year after they come back to become their full self. Now, on the other side of that, we have to think about Chris Sale's age, where he's going to be 32, I believe, next year. So his full year after Tommy John surgery, after he comes back, is when we can expect him to be the Chris Sale that we know and love. But at 32 years old, wrong side of 30, it could affect him in a negative way. However, we do see pitchers, Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, in their 30s pitching very, very well. So hopefully that's something we can put aside and look past. One more thing about The Red Sox, really quickly, actually, I don't know how quick this will be because this is a topic of discussion that I've been wanting to have. I really do. So, David Ortiz was on a podcast and he was being interviewed about today's game. Just a general question about like hitters hitting home runs and just, pitchers racking up a bunch of strikeouts. And this is what he had to say. And I thought this was very, very interesting. So, from the podcast, David Ortiz, and I quote, "We used to want to develop great hitters. Now it's all strikeouts with some home runs and it's straight up effing boring," end quote. So that got me thinking because I do feel the same way about it because you watch almost any baseball game and you see players uppercutting the crap out of the ball because they want to swing for the home run, they want to swing for the fences, and they want to hit the ball 500 feet. Now some players can do that. David Ortiz was certainly one of those players back in the day who could do it. But he also knew when to take a double. He also knew when to take a single or even a walk. Triple, maybe not so much. And there was times when he struck out a lot. Now we can look back, almost over a decade ago to Ryan Howard for the Philadelphia Phillies, a great first baseman who didn't hit well for an average, but he hit like 50 home runs, 40, 50 home runs every year, but he had almost 200 strikeouts as well. And in Ryan Howard's case, it was either a double because the ball was off the wall or just straight up in the gap, a home run because he crushed the ball, or he struck out because he missed his uppercut swing. And if you go look at some Ryan Howard videos, it's all uppercut. Now, a lot of players in today's game are doing the same thing. They're not doing a level swing. They're not trying to get a line drive to go up the middle or to shoot the gap. They're straight up trying to uppercut it and lift the ball into the upper level of the stadium. So, got me thinking because this is something I've really felt about for a few years now, and I did a little research. Hopefully my research will be appreciated, and I think it would be. Okay, so I'm going to give the home run number first because I feel like that's going to be a little bit more eye-popping. So I look back the past 6 years. Now I'm not including 2020 because there's no statistics for it because it was a shortened season. So I'm looking at full-length, regular 162-game seasons. So the last one would be in 2019. And I'm going to look back from the previous 6 years before that, which would bring us to 2014. So starting with 2014, I'm going to give you the list or the number of home runs from that season in both the American League and the National League combined over the course of the whole season. So with 2014, we have 4,186 combined home runs from all players, all positions across both leagues. In 2015, we've had 4,909. In 2016, we've had 5,610. 2017, 6,105. 2018, 5,585. So a little step back. But then in 2019, 6,776, which shatters the previous record as I fix my mic, and it shatters the 2018 mark, which was over 1,200 less or around 1,200 less. That's nuts. That is absolutely nuts. It's exponentially grown every single year, every 5 years. We've seen it grown. Now, let's look at the start of the decade. In 2010, we had 4,613 home runs, and then throughout the 2000s, I guess you could call it, 2000 to 2009, it kind of goes up and down between 5,000 and 4,000. And well, why is that? Well, I could tell you why, because of the steroid era. And, in the early 2000s, you also see 5,000. But however, I do want to take note of 1993, which was the last full year of baseball before we had the 1994 strike, which was the last strike that baseball has had. And if those that don't know, a strike is when one side kind of stops doing their job. So, for example, the players decide to stop playing baseball, and the owners and then the Players Association or the Players Union had to come to an agreement in order to get back to playing. Now, in 1994, there was a disagreement between both the players and the owners, so the players decided to stop playing. To put that into real life perspectives, let's say your 9-to-5 job, you and a bunch of coworkers are sick of the management or your bosses, and then all of you just decide to not work. But obviously that's not going to work if it's just you and a couple buddies. You need like a bunch of people, like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, whatever. So I do want to look at 1993, which was the last full year before the MLB strike. And in that year, they had, They had 4,030 home runs. 4,030 home runs, which is 2,700 less than what we see here in today's game in 2019. And then obviously, how do they get players? How do they get fans back and watching? Well, by putting on a good show, because at that time, baseball was a relatively boring game. I mean, football was obviously in, basketball and Michael Jordan was in, hockey and an aging Wayne Gretzky was still in, of course. So baseball was really taking a back burner because it wasn't really an interesting game, because no one really wanted to watch, where you just sit there for 9 innings. And then, ESPN came out with a documentary of, Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, chasing the home run record at the time, which was 60, and they both shattered it. So, which, came later in the 90s, but we look at, 1993, 4,030 home runs, and we look at today, 6,776. And, well, that's not because of steroids, because steroids are obviously illegal in today's game, but let's just look at a few years after 93. So let's just start with 95, the first full season after the strike. It's 4,081, 96, 4,962, 4,640 in 97, and then in 98, 5,064, 5,528 in 99, 5,693 in 2000, 5,458 in 2001, and so on and so forth up until the mid 2000s, because steroids were legal at that time. So that's why we can explain that spike in home runs for the league. And then after steroids become illegal, it goes back down into the 4,000s. And there is one exception in 2009, 5,042, but we don't see that kind of number again until 2016. So what's the reason? What is the reason? Well, like what I said earlier, every player is swinging for the fences, and it's so annoying. Yes, home runs are awesome to watch. Yes, a towering moon ball that almost leaves the whole stadium is so incredible to watch. Trust me, I love it. But when you see it every night in every game, it gets a little annoying sometimes. It really does, because if they're not hitting the ball 500 feet and towering over the light tower, then they're striking out. And that brings me to my next research, which is MLB strikeout total. And I did the same 6 years from 2014 to 2019, obviously without 2020 because we didn't have a full season. In 2014, we have 37,441 total strikeouts across the league. In 2015, 37,446, 5 more ironically. 38,982 in 2016, 40,104 in 17, 41,207 in 18, and 42,823 in 2019. 42,000 strikeouts? What? I mean, what? I don't get it. I don't get it. So let's look back at 1993, which is the last full season before the 94 strike. And total strikeouts league-wide was, 26,310. Okay. And then in 95, when they come back, 25,425 strikeouts. The number actually goes down, ironically, but then obviously it goes back up a little bit over the course of the late 90s and early 2000s. But I wouldn't say that's because of steroids. I really wouldn't, because even when players were on steroids, I wouldn't really necessarily say that they were all swinging for the fences. I think a lot of the players were doing it to get a leg up on the competition against the pitchers. Now, you could just point to Barry Bonds taking steroids because, he just hit a bunch of home runs, and you could tell the difference between when he was in Pittsburgh to when he was with San Francisco, how jacked he was and how juiced he was. Okay, there's an argument to be had there, but that he's just one player. Now, I'm not going to bore you with, listing all the strikeout totals from 1995 all the way down to 2013, but I will say that it is a consistent small progressional growth. 95, 25,000, 96, 29,000, 97, 29,000, 31,000, 31,000, 31,000, 32,000, 31,000, 30,000. And you see that kind of growth throughout the 2000s. And then in the early 2010s, it's up to 34, 34, 36, 36, and then 2014, 37, like I said. So that is a small progressional growth. And that's not because of steroids. That's because players are starting to hit more or trying to hit more home runs. And when they don't, they're striking out because they're just doing an uppercut. And if they don't connect on the uppercut, they're going to miss because the whole bat angle is completely off. Rather, if they do a nice flat level swing, trying to go for a line drive, if you don't get it right on the nose, it could either be a ground ball or it could either be a fly ball. But since all these players are doing uppercuts, they're either crushing the ball 500 feet or they're striking out. And we could see that because towards the late 2010s, whatever you want to call that decade, the numbers start to jump and spike a little bit, as we can see 42,823 in 2019. It's nuts. It's nuts, and it's drowning the game out, and especially with baseball having a pace of play issue as it is already, because the games are just 3.5, 4 hours long. And like I mentioned on a previous episode, you and I both don't have that kind of time to sit down for 3.5, 4 hours, night in and night out, and watch the game, because with 162 games, we'll just catch the next one. We'll just watch the one tomorrow. I'm going to my buddies this weekend. We'll just watch the game then. But with football, there's only 16 regular season games. So every Sunday, you're going to sit and watch because it's 3 hours in and out and you have to wait another week. It's not that easy to say, I'll just watch it, my buddies next weekend. Well, and you're missing 1/16 of your team's games. But with baseball, and you miss one game, you got 160 others to watch, my man. So baseball has a huge pace of play problem, and they're trying to fix it with the home run, and it's not working. And I did mention on a recent episode that baseball is going to try to deaden the ball, and David Price was, bitching and complaining about they said they weren't juicing them, and now they're going back on their word about it. Which, it may be true that they did juice the ball. It may not be true, but they are going to try to fix it to resolve the whole home run issue. And I commend them for trying to fix that issue, but we'll see if it works. We will see if it works, because a ball that's hit 375 feet, getting a foot or two knocked off of it, I don't know if it's going to do much. I really don't. So it's just going to have to be a wait and see kind of thing with baseball this year. I'm going to be really interested to see when they do play the full season, what kind of numbers we see towards the end of this year in terms of both home run and strikeout numbers. But, wow, that was a lot. I do apologize if I kind of just went on a rant right there. It was very, you can tell how emotional and how much this means to me, because I mentioned before, baseball is my favorite sport, but I don't want the game to be perfect, because no game is perfect, but I want the game to be entertaining, right? Whatever your favorite sport is, whether it's hockey, basketball, soccer, golf, NASCAR, football, whatever, you want it to be entertaining regardless, right? You don't want it to just be boring. You want some juice, a little bit of energy, right? There's going to be some dull moments as expected, but with baseball though, those home runs, those massive home runs are supposed to be energizing and rejuvenating to give you life. But when you see it every day, or I should say when you see it 6,700 times a year, it's cool. The other guy can do it too. So that's my thought and opinion about that. I definitely want to hear yours about baseball, because it is a very controversial topic, because there's so much going on in baseball with their whole rule changing and the pace of play being a major issue. So like I said before, definitely give me your thoughts about it if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever, at Murphs_Boston ST. If you're watching on YouTube, comment down below. I would love to hear all of your thoughts about it to see if you agree with me or not, because if you don't, then I want to hear why. But if you do, I want to know why you agree with me, just so I know I'm not alone on this matter. But let's move on to something that I know I'm not alone on, and that is the Boston Celtics. Yes, the Boston Celtics. A tough loss on Wednesday. Yes, I got my podcast out, before the Celtics were on, obviously ranting and raving about their great win against the Denver Nuggets. However, the next night they go out and lose to the Atlanta Hawks. Now, excuse me, just had a little hiccup there. I did say, got to win 5 of 8. And they're on tracks, hopefully. I mean, I don't know. Losing against the Hawks is something that really shouldn't happen. And they play again against the Hawks again tonight. Both games are in Boston, so there's no traveling. I mean, they did have a day off because on Wednesday they were playing the second night of a back-to-back. But still, that's no excuse. It's the Hawks. They suck. They blow. They're so bad. They have Trae Young, and that's really it. I mean, Trae Young dropped 40 on you. 40 points on you in 35 minutes. Excellent player. One of the best young stars that this game has. I mean, he was an all-star starter last year. Makes a lot of sense. And then you got Clint Capella dropping a double-double. You got John Collins out there going for 20. Cam Reddish hitting 13. And, they got some young players. Not Clint Capella, but, they got young players. They got some good young studs on that team. So their future is, I don't want to say bright, but it's pointing upwards. For the Celtics, though, to lose with Tatum giving you 35, Brown giving you 22, Thompson giving you 14. The rebound numbers still aren't there. But, Semi Ojeleye got 25 minutes and scores 9 points. Probably 3 threes, if we're being honest. I didn't watch the game. I didn't have time to, but it's all he does. He just shoots threes in the corner. Javonte Green, 9 points in 24 minutes. Pritchard 11 points in 23 minutes. So it's I don't know. I really don't know about the Celtics anymore, to be honest. And Grant Williams is out there for 22 minutes with 4 points. Neesmith out there for 2 points. It's what are you guys doing on the court? Yes, I understand your star players, Tatum and Brown, should be doing the bulk of the scoring, and they are. But, you need more from your role players and your rotation or your young players or whoever you want, whatever you want to call them, and you're not getting more. I mean, I'm not asking for them to go out and drop 20, 25 points a night, coming off the bench, but, Javonte Green really getting 24 points, 24 minutes and 9 points. Really, really good for this team. No, and I like him. He's a nice, energetic player. He can throw down some great dunks, but I feel that you can do so much more with those minutes elsewhere. I mean, give them to Aaron Neesmith for all I care about, because Neesmith has a insanely bright future. And granted, he's not, there just yet, and he's had some struggles. But I'd rather him get 30 minutes. I'd rather him get 9 more minutes than Javonte Green got and still get those 2 points, because at least I know he's getting more playing time and getting that experience up. Does that make sense? So minus 9 minutes from Javonte Green's 24. That brings you down to 15. You give those 9 extra minutes to Aaron Neesmith to go up to 30 minutes. And whether the point total is the same, whether it's more, whether it's less, it does not matter. At least I know those minutes are going to someone who is a part of the future with Aaron Neesmith, who I think the Celtics do like and love as a player. And if I'm picking Javonte Green or Aaron Neesmith, I'm picking Aaron Neesmith 9 times out of 10. But they can't be losing these games against the Hawks. They really can't be. And this game tonight has to be a win, because we're going to New Orleans on Sunday. Zion's going to be a problem. Brandon Ingram's going to be a problem. Then you got Dallas on Tuesday. You got another game against Atlanta in Atlanta on Wednesday. You got a little road trip coming up. It could be a problem where you could lose all 3 of them, but you are in a position to win all 3 of them. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Celtics go about these next few games. I like I said, if they don't win 5 out of these eight remaining games, starting with the Denver game on Tuesday, fold it, call it a year. I mean, there's no point, because if we look at the standings, which is something I'm always going to refer to because it is so crucially important to have a higher seed for home field advantage, or I guess home court advantage in basketball's case. 4.5 games out of first place, half game behind the Pacers for the 4 seed, Raptors 5 games back, Knicks 5.5, Hornets 5.5, and then the Bulls are 6 games out. You are closer to being out of the playoffs than you are to the 2nd seed. That makes no freaking sense to me, because the Celtics are better than this. They should be better than this, but they're not playing like the better, and they're not doing the right things. Danny Ainge needs to get his head on right and make this team better now before it's too late, because any players that are on the trading block, like a Andre Drummond or a Blake Griffin or whomever from the crappy teams, even Bradley Beal, they're going to be gone sooner than later. And I know Beal has expressed that he wants to stay with Washington, but it would be kind of pointless for the Wizards to keep him, because they could get a nice return in exchange for Bradley Beal. I mean, Bradley Beal would work perfect here in Boston. He really would be. You go Kemba, Beal, Brown, Tatum, and then whoever you want at the center. Williams, Tice, Thompson, whatever. And you have that third scoring option with Beal. And that takes a lot of pressure off of Jaylen Brown. It takes a lot of pressure off of Jason Tatum. Now, obviously, trying to meticulate a trade package for the Wizards is going to be very complicated because there's going to be a ton of first-round picks, a ton of swaps, and probably 3 bench players. Probably like a Nesmith, Green, and then maybe Grant Williams. Maybe I don't know. Because I mean you could have used those picks last year, the Nesmith pick or the Pritchard pick, and traded and get something else like an established player. That would be nice, right? Instead of your whole bench is just cluttered with unexperienced players or young rookies. Your only experienced player really on your bench is Jeff Teague. I mean, if we're going to be honest, because I'm not going to consider Robert Williams a veteran just yet because he's been in the league for 3 years. But those 3 years, he hasn't really done much. And granted, injuries and all that good stuff, the ton of potential. I'd like to see him get more minutes. Now that we're talking about Robert Williams, I'd like to see him get more minutes because Tristan Thompson ain't doing it for me at center. Daniel Tice is nice, but I'd like to see him come off the bench more. And Grant Williams isn't doing it either, and he's not a center. I'd love to see Robert Williams. He throws down great alley-oops. He plays good defense. His perimeter defense, sucks abysmally, but his, rim protection, his paint defense is very good, and he's an intimidating factor because when players go for layups, he can easily swat it and reject it. And I think a player like that is who the Celtics should be starting at for the center. So that player is not just like wanting the ball all the time, trying to score all the time, because Robert Williams, that is not his forte. Celtics, man, the Celtics. You love them and you hate them. You do. They really polarize their fan base. The importance of tonight's game against the Hawks is so crucial. It's so important because if they lose this, might as well lose and just tank, right? Like I said, you're closer to being out of the playoffs than you are into the playoffs. And if you're out of the playoffs, you're in the lottery. And granted, your percentage sucks at getting a high pick, being like the last team out. But might as freaking well, right? What else are you going to do? I mean, you're going to go be the 8th seed and then lose to the 76ers or the Nets in the first round? Because that's exciting. I mean, that was nice, 7 years ago when you lost to the Cavaliers and LeBron James in the first round because you weren't expected to be good. But now you are expected to be good. You are expected to be a top-tier team in the NBA. And when you're not, well, it's a very depressing time to be a Celtics fan. It really is. And hopefully, with the trade deadline coming up in a few weeks, Danny Ainge makes some moves, because if he doesn't, or if he makes the wrong move, he should be fired. That's just fact, not opinion. But regardless, I want to hear your thoughts about it. Like I said, all throughout episode. And of course, the heater's turning on as I'm about to do the outro, but it is what it is, whatever. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for downloading. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. This was episode 18, and it's so fulfilling to be this far into this journey. I mean, almost at 20 episodes. It's crazy. The downloads are getting racked up, and I appreciate every single one of you for downloading, for listening, for enjoying, for reaching out to me, conversations, discussions, whatever. We are over here at Murph's Boston Sports Talk in the works of a little giveaway. I don't want to give too much away about giveaway, but I don't want to give too much away, like too much information, whatever, about said giveaway, because I want to keep it kind of under the table, but I do kind of want to throw a little sneak peek, a little Easter egg right there. So definitely stay tuned for that as more information and details comes around about that. I'm definitely excited to kind of to shoot this out there for those listeners to enjoy when it comes. I'm not going to say what it is, whatever, but just know that is on the horizon. But nonetheless, thank you so much for all your support. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Don't forget to download, listen, enjoy, share it. All of that is appreciated. If you're watching on YouTube, comment down below. If you haven't already and enjoyed this video, definitely throw it a thumbs up, as it shows me that you like the video and it supports the channel. Subscribe if you're new, or if you haven't subscribed yet, for more podcast episodes and more YouTube exclusive content. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, Stitcher, Radio Public, wherever, reach out to me at Murphs_BostonST on Twitter, on Instagram. That is one of the great ways to get to me if you're not listening or watching on YouTube. Thank you so much again, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to catch you on Monday's episode with hopefully a bunch of awesome new details, new information to dive into about whatever. Celtics win, Celtics lose. It's going to be a conversation to have regardless. And then maybe we'll have some breaking news out of the other sports or something to talk about regarding hockey, maybe. Who knows? We'll have to see. But until then, guys, I'm going to see you later. Peace.